Nigel, welcome to the ExchangeWire kitchen. Lovely to have you.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
No worries, you're always welcome. Before we start, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're up to at the moment.
So I'm Nigel Clarkson. I am approaching, scarily, my 30th year in media and ad tech. I think my first half of my career was very much based in sort of traditional channels, so out of home and radio, and then the latter half I've evolved into sort of mobile, digital and ad tech as I tried to kind of follow the puck and see where the direction of travel is going for media. So I left my full-time role in March, and for the last 6 months I've been working as an executive consultant for the DPAA, which is the Digital Place-Based Advertising Association. It's a trade body, marketing body for all things related to digital out of home. So that might be programmatic partners, agencies, clients, brands, but also screen providers, DCO providers, etc. And that's, so think of it like a ThinkBox IAB for digital out of home globally. And I'm also working with View, which is the programmatic out of home SSP.
Amazing. Well, as you said, you've got a near 30-year career in the industry, so we've got a fair few bits to talk about today. First off, I'm going to ask you to tell us what you're drinking and why.
I'm drinking Earl Grey tea with milk, which I think might disgust some people, but there's a right amount of milk in there, so that's good. I feel a little bit like a imposter syndrome in a coffee whiz, and I'm not drinking coffee. So you're drinking a double for both of us. So.
I am indeed. Yeah, you've made a mockery of my format, but you are welcome. And
tea with Nigel.
Tea with Nigel. It's a fine choice. Yeah. A milky Earl Grey. You will, of course. The YouTube comments will go wild.
Apologies.
No worries. We'll see what they say. Cool. Well, first off, let's have a little general state of the industry. What are you seeing at the moment? You know, like you said, you're doing some executive consulting, you've got fingers in a few places and a long history in the industry. What for you are the main trends and topics at the moment that are really kind of cutting through?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very broad church of a question, but I think, I guess the state of sort of ad tech at the moment is exceptionally exciting. So ATS in September kind of showed there's so much kind of incredible entrepreneurial behaviors going on, really smart businesses. The big businesses that already exist are not resting on their laurels, they're constantly evolving. And of course, the central theme through everything at the moment is AI, and where AI is going to take us all. Your business, I'm sure, is affected. And I think that's really interesting because everybody is looking at AI to see how they can make their businesses hopefully better, more efficient. Some businesses are now cropping up which are entirely AI based, so they're kind of almost evolving past 2, 3, 4 years of development straight into we're an AI audience building campaign or an AI DSP, or so that area is I think fascinating at the moment. I think if we just assume that everybody's doing AI, there's not much differentiation. I think the differentiation will be where businesses use AI to make their product or the outcome of their product more efficient. And I think there's one, because as I said, I've spent half of my earlier career not in ad tech and my latter half in ad tech. We are very guilty in the ad tech world of talking about ourselves. We have conferences where everyone in ad tech agrees that ad tech's jolly nice and everyone in ad tech knows everyone else in ad tech. There's very few clients there, there's very few agencies there. So we are a little bit preaching to the choir, and I think that sometimes it's good to stop and sort of work out not how we do things, but why. Like and when you go in to see a client, there's so many things on a marketing director's plate: pricing, packaging, distribution, and advertising is a small part of that, and ad tech is a really small part of that. So getting in to see these customers should be around like, what is the outcome of the product or the service that I'm providing you. And then I think there are certain areas in ad tech generally, connected television, digital out of home, I would say, dynamic content distribution across all channels is something which I think needs further development because it's incredibly exciting. And retail media, connected TV. So there's a few channel specialities that seem to be getting all of the headlines. The one observation I would make is that it's really exciting. There are a lot of very, very big businesses doing great things, and so if you're a challenger brand, it's quite hard. Entry level, it's really difficult, and so there are a lot of jobs that I've been speaking to businesses about to help bring some talent into those businesses. To a lot of people who are US based or European based want their first hire in the UK. It's a really tough gig, but if you get it right, you find a couple of partners that really understand your tech and what you can do for them, then I still think it's an incredibly interesting and exciting sort of part of media to be working in.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like you say, it's hard to ignore AI at all. Like, at least, it is sometimes the only game in town, it seems. All the news coming out, everyone wants to talk about their AI offering.
Yeah.
Like you said, new AI startups are starting to just take over. But there are still, because of that, there are still parts of the ecosystem that I feel are a little undervalued. And I think out of home's one. It's come to the fore a bit this year. We've been hearing a lot more about, like you said, DCO and how this is impacting the out of home world.
Yeah.
I have a massive soft spot for out of home. It's always been one of my favourites. But talk a little bit about that. Like, where are we with digital out of home programmatic, and do you still feel it's undervalued?
Yeah, well, you had a really good coffee with Hannah Thompson at
Yeah.
IPG a couple of weeks ago. If you haven't seen it, look it up. It's very good. Hannah's brilliant. And yeah, I think you're right. There is a lot of focus now on that channel. I wouldn't say it's undervalued. I think it's misunderstood, actually. And so I'll redefine the question.
No, fair enough.
Only because online programmatic's been around for over a decade now, and digital out of home probably at a scaled level maybe 3 or 4 years. And I think the biggest challenge I've seen in all of my roles previously is that the out-of-home industry hasn't yet fully lent into programmatic. So, there's legacy ways of trading, there's legacy commercial deals, there's legacy ways of selling. And there are big sales teams that are very good at doing that. They fight for share, and it's all about how much panels, how many bits of inventory they can sell. And then the programmatic experts, who are incredible and very knowledgeable about online and really leaning into connected television and audio, maybe they all haven't lent into out of home quite yet. So, the two major pillars of the sort of the buying and planning community that should be adopting digital out of home haven't really lent in earnest, but we are seeing it. So certainly the direction of travel is going in that direction. I think there are really interesting parallels, and where out of home, take away the programmatic bit, out of home works really good as a priming channel, as a support channel. It's always done really great work connecting other media channels. So understanding the role of out of home in kind of that sofa to store journey, so the television, connected television screens in store, and then that real world journey where an actual human drives to an actual shop to buy some things.
Yep.
And, out of home can be that sort of partner to that journey. That's really interesting. Connected television and out of home, I think, is a really interesting potential tie-up. Yeah. Both early in their sort of development stages, both owned by sort of legacy broadcasters, legacy ways of trading and commercials, and now suddenly evolving into something different, but protecting where they've always come from. So that's a really interesting area. So yeah, I think out of home is more misunderstood. There is an incredible creative canvas, and the data, the targeting that you can do with programmatic and DMPs and DSPs now is so much more complex than it's been before. So the challenge, really, my main challenge, is probably to help educate the out-of-home industry and work together to make that more evolved into programmatic trading, which is happening, by the way, and there's hundreds of good examples of that. But also, probably more importantly, to work with programmatic traders that are very, very comfortable delivering all of their social, all of their search, all of their display and video programmatically, and haven't yet sort of bought out of home. I think out of home is the last bit missing from the omni-channel bit. Yep. It's sort of omni-channel, and we'll do outdoor separately. And I think that will be a big development into 2026.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, and just how important out of home can be in that omni-channel mix. It's so compatible with other advertising and other formats of advertising. I like what you said about the link between that and CTV, because they're not other ends of the spectrum in terms of how appreciated they are. Like you said, it's more misunderstood perhaps than undervalued in terms of out of home. But CTV, before AI took over all the conversation, CTV remains one of the hot topics for the people who want to talk about CTV. I've seen ITV have now had a hookup today where they can do AI generated ads for small medium businesses, which is really interesting. But yeah, CTV is another one that interacts quite nicely with out of home, and there's a certain level of interplay there. How do you see the CTV landscape and how they kind of intertwine? Yeah,
so I think you named ITV there. So the ITV, Channel 4 in UK specifically, but every territory around the world will have those legacy broadcasters that for years have owned the airwaves, and it's been linear television and appointment to view, and for the last 10 years we're moving into more streamed content. Then suddenly sort of long tail TV video aggregation has happened, and that's kind of where programmatic feels like most of the noise that happens in social and on LinkedIn tends to be from that space. Yep. because ITV and Channel 4 and some of those bigger broadcasters are still wrestling internally with what this change does, because there are still millions of people watching Corrie and big sports events and soap operas and Love Island or whatever. So those legacy vehicles and the way in which they make money and hit audiences are still really strong. But there's also this really smart new way of doing things, which is either contextually targeted or audience or behaviorally targeted or geo-targeted via IP address. And that's really smart. And if you just remove ITV and Channel 4 and you put in Clear Channel, Ocean, Global, Deco, it's similar, right? They've got incredible assets globally. They know very well how to sell, position and trade those. And suddenly there's this new way of working where you can come in and you don't have to buy 100 billboards for 2 weeks. You could buy spots in 400 different billboards, but only for an hour a day, when the audience data tells us that that's the really key time to hit those audiences. So I think there are similarities, both on screens, which is fairly basic. Television is sight and sound. Out of home generally is sound, but it's kind of autoplay sound off, which is what most video online is now. If you're in stream or social video, it's autoplay sound off content. Yep. So lots of 6 sheets, digital 6 sheets are the same shape as a mobile phone. So that's more of a video play than a telly play. Yep. So I don't think out of home needs to position itself as telly. No. But I think out-of-home video everywhere, which is the sort of the strapline of the DPAA, is a really interesting concept. Moving away from just static screens for 2 weeks to dynamic screens, and that might be a static image, but dynamic screens, being able to move ads into different places at the right time. And so I think it's really early days. By the way, I've spoken to some telecom, and I think the CTV industry is trying to work out what it is and what it isn't anyway. But I do think that 2026 will be an interesting time when those two legacy channels sort of come together a bit more.
Yeah, I can totally see that. And I think, you mentioned the geolocation play, which is really interesting because that's a huge strength for out of home. Geography is your context in that sense. But then also TV, I was having a chat, did a trade talk with someone last week, and they were talking about the power of the IP address with the smart TV and how it's your TV does not move from your living room, so it is centered to that location. There's a lot of opportunity in there, and that's similar to an out-of-home billboard programmatically. It's fascinating how they'll interact going forward.
Geo data, locational data. My last role at TapTap was all around that, and out-of-home by definition, what did you say then? Geo is location.
Geography is context.
Brilliant, love that. And so we used to say we editorialise by geography. So where the online world talks about context, I sold an ad for British Airways because it was in a travel document, right? That is the obvious. It's a content match, whereas in out of home it's the real world. And somebody used to talk. I used to work with somebody who talked about intent, and out of home is around physical intent. You don't travel to a B&Q unless you want to go there to buy something. Whereas we could sit here now and search for a new Lamborghini that we've got I've certainly got no chance of being able to afford. You may be able to.
I couldn't get another one.
Because it's easy, right? Search is cheap because we can search for 50 different cars here and now, but we go to a test drive. We physically left our home. So that power of physical location, that power of intent, particularly in retail media, I think is a really interesting one to play with. So and again, I'm not trying to, because the parts of ad tech are already complex enough, but retail media, television, out of home feels like it connects so many different spots, physical locations where 80% of grocery sales in the UK is still in a shop with a human going there with a trolley and their car. A lot of those brand messages are made in television, but that might be 12 hours before the person leaves on the shopping journey. So that last minute nudge, we used to talk about recency, the last point of sale, last medium consumed before buying was out of home. So I think there's some really interesting types. I just don't know who the right people to do that are, because in their different component parts, everyone's already doing it. Do you know what I mean? So like the retail media, clearly that industry is super complex already and developed. Out of home has always talked about the power of sort of point of purchase, and television's always talked about brand. So I think the smart partners are the people that tie those customer journeys together. We talk about customer journeys online as I went on a website. Yeah. I'm talking about customer journey as a human left their house and went to a store.
Saw an advert for a toothpaste, got in my car, saw a billboard for the toothpaste outside the supermarket, purchased the toothpaste.
Or saw a screen in the supermarket next to the toothpaste now. So, JCDecaux, Clear Channel are physically building screens in supermarkets, gable ends, where once there was a buy one, get one free promotional offer, now there's a 6 foot by 4 foot digital screen that can change dynamically according to the weather and sunshine and pollen and, you know, all of those, that's where it becomes really smart. And back to our earlier point around misunderstood, all of this stuff that people probably would think, oh, I could do that with online. I can flip things. I can dynamically change. I can use some external data to change when the weather is hot and when pollen. Well, you can do that with out of home, and even creatively, you could have a billboard ad that, you know, and the learning we've always had is clear image, nice big brand, and a strap line, right? Just keep it simple. It's a poster. You may only see it for 2-3 seconds, but actually, if you could import data that told you when traffic was going slower than 10 miles an hour, you could double the copy that you had in the poster for that hour, that rush hour.
Yeah.
You know, same concept, same visual, same brand, but you got more space. And people talk about, you know, Jack Daniels, the famous cross-track. They told a story.
Yeah.
Because they could. You've got 3-4 minutes. You're on the platform on the London Underground. Clearly, we're British, so we're desperately avoiding eye contact with any strangers and reading anything on the wall.
Yeah.
But that's a really powerful brand message. So they sort of flipped the logic of posters being short form into a long form content. And again, you can do that with roadside because you have the power using some of that real time data to change that copy. And I just don't think I don't think maybe programmatic traders understood that you can do that and maybe wouldn't even know where to go if they wanted to.
Yeah. Well, for 2026, connecting those silos is going to be...
Get it on stage.
That's it, going to be a big thing. I think we're going to probably have to do a sequel, Nigel. We'll call it a day there, but I think I'm going to have you back to carry on that discussion now. Retail media's in the mix as well. Thank you so much for joining me. That was great. We'll keep up and catch up soon.
Thanks, mate. Thanks, everyone.
No worries.